with the scent of potpourri, films we commit to memory. Crossing the felt ropes, watching from home on my TV, looking at all my eyes can see. They tell me I view obsessively.
Hello and welcome to The Obsessive Viewer, a weekly podcast reviewing two new or recent release titles every episode, with an occasional free-for-all segment at the end that we call Potpourri. I'm your host, Matt Hurt, and you can find more of my work, including my written reviews, full episode show notes, and the complete backlog of our episodes and spin-off podcasts at obsessiveviewer.com. You can also follow me on Letterboxd and other social media platforms at the username of Obsessive Viewer. And if you'd like to support us and get access to hundreds of exclusive episodes, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer, where in the run-up to the end of the year, I am just throwing a bunch of stuff at Patreon. I finally finished my long walk-along project on Patreon that is directly related to this episode of The Obsessive Viewer, of course. But I finally finished that. I did 6 episodes where I did a walk while listening to the audiobook, and then I walked while reviewing each section. So all told, I walked for a total over the course of like 3 months, I think like 27 miles. And I spent 10 hours and 45 minutes walking and talking and listening. So go check that out at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. I'm also, speaking of Stephen King, also doing Welcome to Derry episode reviews. $2 and above patrons get access to audio of that, while the $5 and $10 patrons get access to video reviews of that as well. So basically, you can pay $2 and hear me, or pay $5 and $10 to just see me, which is... I don't know if that's the incentive that I think it is, but I also have a Patreon potpourri where I talk about 4 movies that I watched for awards consideration. That included Bob Trevino Likes It, Splitsville, and 2 other ones that I can't really remember. I couldn't remember when I recorded the next episode of the podcast either. But anyway, that's up there. And finally, starting this week or next, the Gotham Project is launching on Patreon. My Batman, review discussion thing that I'm doing in 2026. So that's going to be launching soon. So all of that and so much more is available at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. And if you want to support me without messing around with Patreon and just want to make a donation, go to buymeacoffee.com/obsessiveviewer, where you can make a one-time or recurring donation. Okay, so in this episode, we are going to be reviewing the new film from Charlie Polinger, The Plague, in this week's secondary review. But before that, we're going to go over some movie news, and we're also going, and then we're going to review Francis Lawrence's Stephen King adaptation, The Long Walk, in this week's feature review. And joining me this week is my friend and IFJA colleague, whose work can be found at MidwestFilmJournal.com, and he can be followed on Letterboxd at the handle of Joe R. Shearer. It's Joe Shearer. Hello, Joe. How is it going this Monday evening in 2025?
Is going well. Yeah, I'm excited to finally talk about The Long Walk.
Yes,
the new release of the week, back in September. But
right.
yeah,
it
was funny.
Go ahead.
Well, it was funny because I actually did the same thing that you did, except without the walking part. Where I, in anticipation of this movie, I listened to the audiobook of The Long Walk, and it certainly enhanced my viewing of the film. And it's not something I always do. I have done on occasion, but in anticipation of a movie, read the book it's based on. But yeah, and then I told you about that, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that, and but life gets in the way.
Yeah, life
is that the expression.
Yeah, and laziness, honestly. Like the whole fact that I was walking while doing it, it's like, okay. Like the reason that I finished it yesterday was because it was an unseasonably warm, like 63 degrees here in Indy, and I was like, this is literally the last chance of the year that I will have to finish this. Like, this is the last opportunity because it is now like in the teens.
Yeah. I was gonna say, imagine what would have happened if you hadn't gotten done yesterday.
Exactly. So
I was just out there. It's no good.
Yeah, I appreciate your patience in me dragging my feet literally to get this ready and everything. It's funny too because I'm someone who I want to and I often do enjoy doing like reading the book first and then watching the movie, and usually I'm like pretty decent about it, but again, because of this whole project, I was like, okay, this is many steps, no pun intended. So yeah,
and it's a novel idea, and I should point out, I guess I also did the same thing. I'm just going to say I did the same thing. I was just sitting in my car most of the time. I was listening to it driving, so I was moving faster than you. There you go.
You don't know how fast I walk.
Well, that's true.
No, yesterday, total amount, it was like 5.5 miles I walked to finish the book and to record my review, and like,
oh, that's good.
Yeah, and like when I got home, it was just like, oh my God, I can barely move. Like it's just, I'm so, granted, I'm out of shape anyway, but it's just like, oh my God, this is after like a month or so of almost 2 months of not doing that and then going right into that. It's just like I'm still sore today, but it's like that good soreness.
You could do it tomorrow and then, your body is ready to step up a little bit.
Exactly. And speaking of stepping up to things, recently on Midwest Film Journal, you have posted you've written some essays and reviews, one of which being for the most recent one being for the secondary title that we're going to be reviewing tonight, The Plague. And then you also reviewed Five Nights at Freddy's 2, and you also submitted essays for their higher ed Ed Harris retrospective for Glengarry Glen Ross and The Firm. Aside from The Plague, how were those other movies? How was the experience of writing about Ed Harris?
Yeah. Well, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is well, let me put it like this: I am writing my end of the year article. And Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is a number one, not for my best movies of the year, but for my worst movies of the year. So yeah, that was, and I, as much as I wanted it to be drop, which it had been the movie drop for most of the year, as my worst of the year. This, I couldn't not put Five Nights at Freddy's. It was just so worthless.
Wow.
In just every conceivable way. No offense to anyone involved in the making of Five Nights at Freddy's 2, or people who enjoyed it, because as I noted in my review, this actually was my first line. I just brushed over it again a minute ago. I'm looking at it now, and it I said, this is not for me. Even though I grew up, bouncing around the interiors of Showbiz Pizza Place and Chuck E. Cheese and, back and forth. And when I heard about the game years and years ago from my kids, I thought, wow, what a great idea. And then, I played the game every once in a while, and I was like, oh yeah, this is kind of fun. I get why, people like it. And then that first movie came out, and I thought, man, that they just mangled this so much. And then this movie doubles down on that mangling in such a way that it's just such a convoluted story. For no good. It's like, listen, monsters are inhabiting these robots, that then kill people. It's like, how hard is that? And it's like, oh no, we got to do all this like children's souls, and there's like a Chucky element to it. And I was just like, so, but anyway, we're not here to talk about Five Nights at Freddy's 2. But yeah, so that was my worst film of the year. Of course,
Wow.
the Ed Harris movies were both great. I think we touched on those the last time I was on, that they were coming.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
And I was excited to do those. I wish I could have selected Creepshow as my other one. But for two things, I just recently wrote about Creepshow.
Right.
And Ed Harris's part was so small in that movie that it would have been difficult to stretch a full column out of it.
Sure.
As it is, I covered Creepshow back in actually the same month. It was back in October. And so I had just written about it, and I mentioned his performance. He does the most ridiculous dance, early 80s club scene. I am still stuck in the disco kind of dancing to music. And it is ludicrous in all the best ways.
Nice.
But didn't get to write about it. It's like, I mean, there's the entire thrust of the review, that, and he gets killed. Sorry if you've never seen Creepshow. You should go see it.
Statute of limitations is
know
up, I
that
think.
he got killed. Also, Stephen King connection too, because Stephen King was the co-source of those. He and George Romero, and so yeah. Anyway, The Firm was fun. I've always loved The Firm. I've seen it many times. Also, I've seen Glenn Ross many times. Love that as well. So I was very happy to write about the both of those with
Nice.
A slant toward Ed Harris. And on that note, I did rewatch for the holiday season the Saturday Night Live Christmas special from last year, where they showed Alec Baldwin doing his elf riff on Glengarry Glen Ross on his speech, and it was amazing.
That's
such
awesome.
a great
I don't
skit.
think I've seen that.
No, yeah, you have to go like check it out. And the best moment is where he, he's the head elf, or not the head elf. He's the elf from like Santa sent him to give the Glengarry speech he gives in that movie, but to elves. And so he's, instead of dropping F-bombs, he's saying, go elf yourself, because they're elves. And at one point, he does the chalkboard bit, the ABC always be closing, but it's always be cobbling because, again, they're elves. But he messes up and he says closing and stops.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he corrects himself. He goes ABC, A always be B, C closing. And then he's like, always be, and he goes, no, cobbling, always be cobbling. And everybody like lost it. And he like stopped and, did the thing, closed his eyes and like gave himself a second. And, it was like very fun. So anyway, go check that out. Check out those reviews. We'll talk about The Plague in a few minutes. So I will, save everything on that.
Yeah.
Different kind of movie than any of the ones that we have or will be talking about in the next however long we're here.
Oh yeah. I'll talk about that. I just had a question that came up. That we'll talk about that when we get to The Plague, because I don't know when it's being released or anything.
Oh yeah.
But anyway,
I believe it's going wide on Friday.
Nice.
According to my review, opening and wide release Friday.
Oh, perfect.
So that would be
awesome.
And it was posted today.
Nice.
So, it went live today. So.
Serendipitous. Then.
Yeah, this is real timely and a little bit of extra publicity for it.
Oh yeah. So that's what Joe has been working on. I'll put a link to all of his stuff in the show notes, of course. And usually I do a playing this week in indie segment. I don't really have much. It's the end of the year and everything, but I do just want to mention that Alamo Drafthouse, of course, first and third Sunday of each month, they have movie trivia hosted by our friend and colleague Lou Harry. And it's free to enter, free to play. Just go in and get yourself some food and some drinks. That's not free, but and go see a movie. That's also not free, but do some trivia.
The trivia is free. I've gone. Our mutual friend and colleague Nick Rogers went. He brought his wife and I brought my fiance, and we ended up having to go head to head because there weren't any other people there. So and then I went a second time just Elisha, my fiance, and I, and we won. So
nice.
I've got a second place finish and a first place finish. So anybody want to come knock me off my perch? I'm not there all the time, but maybe I will be there this Sunday.
Nice.
I was also trying to talk you into coming this Sunday. So
yes,
maybe that
I
would
might
be a thing that could happen.
Yeah. So yeah, come to Alamo on Sunday and you might see both of us. So
How fun
would
that be?
Oh yes.
That's a real question, by the way. How fun would that be?
Yeah, I think it would be pretty fun. Yeah, I could not guarantee. I can't guarantee that I would be nearly as good at it as Nick or you are. But I will at least say some stupid stuff. I'm sure.
Yeah, you'll have moments where you'll feel stupid, as I did many times, and then other times when you feel like the smartest man alive. And that's
just described the last 498 episodes of the Obsessive Viewer podcast for me.
Yes, so that by design. That's how that works. Yeah, it's both a humbling experience and an empowering one, because you'll get some. He has some questions that are easy enough, and then he has some that are impossible. Especially Lou. I love Lou, but he not as much as Lou loves musicals.
Yes,
and I don't love musicals as much as that. And I'm more recent. Even Elisha, my fiance, who is an avowed fan of musicals, and in terms of modern musicals, I mean Hamilton, Six. Her favorite is Man of La Mancha. She, Chicago, Mulan. Like, she's into all of those, and she knows songs by heart. She sings songs by heart regularly.
Nice.
And Lou actually let her choose this category. There were, he had, basically like sheets of paper where he had written the category, and he fanned them out, like, pick a card, and she chose musicals and celebrated, and then proceeded to get most of them wrong or not. And she was so just distraught by it.
Wow.
But she, she'd still contributed quite a bit. There was a Disney music category earlier, and she cleaned up.
Nice.
She humbled Nick in that category, I'll say.
Nice.
Yeah. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So there are. It's a fun little space. It's a fun time.
Yeah.
Come and check it out. Answer some movie trivia. And
absolutely. Oh yeah. So that's what's going on in Indy. Of course, check the show listings and everything for the other theaters: Can, Living Room, Keystone Art, Flix Brewhouse. A lot of good film related stuff going on in Indianapolis. So before we get to the reviews, I do have a couple of news items that I feel we need to touch on, especially given the content of this episode, since we're reviewing The Long Walk. In the interim since the last episode of the Obsessive Viewer, there have been there have been a couple of events in Hollywood that are tragic and sad. So Rob Reiner and his wife passed away a couple of weeks ago under horrific circumstances. And of course, he was a prolific director with many, many titles under his belt. Also performer. Of course, to bring it to Stephen King, he directed Misery and Stand By Me, two standout adaptations that also could not be more different from one another in tone. And it's just, I've been kind of... they say like, oh, this rocked Hollywood, this rocked everything. But usually it's like, oh yeah, well that's sad that this person passed away. This sad that this happened. And it's like, okay, but this it's kind of affected me on a deeper level than most, just because of the circumstances and the shock of it all. So, Joe, I know that you met Rob Reiner a couple of times, even, I think.
Yes.
how did you process this news, and do you have any memories of Rob Reiner, either his work or personal experience?
Both. Just aside, I have interviewed him twice, and the second time was in person. The first time was on the phone, and then I met him in person. So he was here for premieres for two of his films, for Flipped in, I think it was 2009, and for LBJ in 2017, I believe. And so I did the interview with him for Flipped over the phone, and it was such just a great experience. He was so just warm and kind and thoughtful. Even, I mean, especially in 2009, most of my questions were pretty standard. I was still pretty young, and I had done a bunch of interviews, but they were still pretty, vanilla questions. And he was very gracious, and I've done enough interviews to know that when you do them, the subject of the interview always has canned answers and canned responses. And he had those, but they didn't feel that way, and it never felt like he was just half-heartedly answering a question that he knows I'm going to ask. It felt very real, and you could just feel the warmth coming off of him. The second one was my favorite interview that I've ever done.
Wow!
And I've done hundreds legitimately, from people who are recognizable kind of names, and a lot of filmmakers who are not, people who are going into a film festival and have their little short film. I've kind of run the gamut, and he's probably the kind of that he's the crown jewel of that, as far as I'm concerned. Was as big as anything. And so when I heard, the very first thing I did is I went and ran down my second interview with him, and I read it, start to finish, and I hadn't looked at it. I mean, it was almost 10 years ago now, and I hadn't looked at it really in probably 6 or 7 at least. And the thing that stood out to me was that about halfway through the interview, he starts asking me questions, and it's about, so I mentioned during the course of the interview that I had shown my daughter Stand By Me. He went to The Princess Bride and was like, "Oh, how old were you when The Princess Bride came out?" And I was like, "Well, it came out in 87. I would have been, 9, 10 years old." And he was like, "Yeah." And he says, "So when did you see it?" And I was like, "Well," and this was where I got real nervous, because I didn't see The Princess Bride until I was an adult. And I said, "Well, I'm going to tell you, I hadn't seen it. I didn't see it until later on. I didn't see it new, but Stand By Me, which came out the year prior to that, was an absolute, running on repeat at my house for years. I admitted to him that we, basically pirated the movie, which, back in those days, everybody did. You get yourself a second VCR and record from one VHS tape to another.
Yeah.
And, you rent it and record it, and then you have that, in your library. That's how we did it back in the day. And so I did, and I wore that tape out. I watched it constantly. It was such a great film. It holds up because it's set in a time frame that it wasn't made in. It takes place in the 50s. It was made in the mid 80s, and it worked so well because it's that snapshot of the 50s. And all, the performances are iconic. There's 4 or 5 iconic scenes in that movie, and every scene of that film is memorable in some way. And so I had the chance to tell him that stuff and thank him for that, and mention my favorite scene that no one else seems to remember of his, and that's from The American President, from several years after. And it's early on when Annette Bening first meets Michael Douglas. Hopefully enough people have seen this to understand what I'm saying. Basically, Michael Douglas is the president. Annette Bening is a lobbyist for the environmental lobby, and she's going in, and she's like, she'd never met the president. She's real nervous, and she's like, "I'm going to talk tough to him, though." So she's talking to an advisor, and starts, and just is talking smack to him, and is like, "I don't know who he thinks he is." I don't remember the exact line, but I think, it's like, if this is what he thinks, then he's the commander-in-chief of Fantasyland or something like that. And she doesn't realize that, the president has walked in behind her into the room. And as soon as she finishes her sentence, he just casually strolls in and is like, let's drag him out back and kick the shit out of him. And it makes me laugh every time. And I got to tell him that. And I was like, that was incredible. Like, I had goosebumps telling him that. I've got goosebumps now recounting
That's awesome.
The one thing that kind of made me really sad was that, I mentioned the conversation with my daughter. He asked me multiple questions about her, and I can send you the link to this if you want to include it. If it's that,
absolutely.
But number one, he mentioned I talked about how I had shown her Texas Chainsaw Massacre just shortly before the time of the interview, and he said, "Oh my God!" And I was like, you know what she said to me? And he goes, no, what did she say? And I said, she said, Dad, that wasn't even scary. And he laughed and he said, some kids are like that. And he said, my kid was like that too. And I don't know which of his children he was talking about, but that was just such a haunting line to me now. Yeah. Given, the circumstances. But it was this moment that is just going to have just so much more meaning to me now, that that have the way that things did it is so horrible that it transpired that way. And I know his son had been going through so many issues with mental illness and addiction, and it's such a tragedy. But for me personally, the last thing that happened was earlier this year. My daughter, she was finishing high school. She's in college now, but in her last semester, she did a unit in one of her classes where they watched A Few Good Men, and she had to write a paper about it. And we spent hours talking about that movie. And that's again is another one of my favorite movies. And I've been saying for a couple of decades now, you take Rob Reiner from his filmography, from This Is Spinal Tap to The American President. You could put that run of films, even with North, the one that was a massive flop. You could put that up against any filmmaker in the history of Hollywood. It would stand. I don't know that it's the best, but it stands up with any of the best. You go Kubrick, Hitchcock, like you throw any of those names out, Rob Reiner's got to be there, just on the strength of that 10-year stretch of time. But I was done talking to her, when all that ended, I kind of, at one point I started thinking, man, it'd be really fun to be able to interview him again and then tell him, about that, because he had so many questions about her and, what she thought about these movies. And I was like, man, that's, to me, it's so sad. It's like, I will never have the chance to do that. Not that I necessarily would have anyway, but it's just like the finality of all of that is so, so it's just so unfortunate. And he was such a great man. And, just from the interactions I had with him, my dad made me say hi to Meathead for me a couple of times. And I did that. And he just gave me the chuckle and was like, oh, I hear that all the time, and it was such a, he was such a warm guy. He like shook my hand at the end. I took a picture. I thought I took a picture with him, but I can't find the picture now. But I did take a picture of him that's included in the article.
Nice.
But yeah, it was just such a looking back on a more important moment than I even knew. Those times I got to meet him. So, and they were such thrills at that time to be able to meet him. So that is an absolute tragedy. And I don't know that I would even say I'm over it. It's it's just such a horrible thing.
Yeah, absolutely horrible. And thank you so much for sharing that. That's amazing. And I will definitely put a link to that in the show notes for sure. Rest in peace. I don't know what else to say. But to continue on this line of depressing news, James Ransone passed away also. At this point, a week or two ago. He, of course, to tie it to Stephen King, he played adult Eddie in It Chapter 2.
Yeah.
He's also well known for his role as Ziggy in season 2 of The Wire, which I just recently finished rewatching. And like rewatching that season with him, season 2, he he really does give an incredible performance because that character. I don't know, Joe. Have you ever seen The Wire?
I never did watch The Wire.
Okay.
That is a show that I certainly just missed, and I have heard so many great things about it. I saw it chapter 2.
Nice.
Again, it's another, as you said, another Stephen King adaptation. So it's but so I was less familiar with him, but also it was sad. And again, my daughter was the one who brought it up. She was a very big fan of the It movies. And, and she was just like, "Oh, that's just so sad." And I was like, "Wow, yeah, that is." But and again, mental illness is just such a beast, and it's that's just one of those things. It's like,
it really is. But yeah, he was also in Generation Kill and several Scott Derrickson movies, of course. But The Wire, just to kind of highlight his performance in that, he's in the second season, and that season kind of is all about stevedores, like dock workers, and the eroding middle class and working class, and unionization and stuff, all like a whole bunch of things like that. But he plays this character that is like so frustratingly not goofy, but he's like he's got some like, they never really say like what he has, but he's a joke. He's kind of a joke. Like he's a goofy guy who seems like he has like this unearned confidence. Like he's kind of slow-witted, kind of a slow-witted guy who's trying to get in with like drug dealers and trying to get money, pursuing the American dream through the drug trade and everything. But he is not taken seriously by anyone because he is like this goofball jackass. And that character, that type of character, is written in such a specific way. Just in general, like any type of character, any character in anything that has those attributes, they're written in a specific way that make them unbearably annoying and unbearably like aggravating. In the way that James Ransone approached that role, approached that performance, he retained that irritating, frustrating kind of characterization, but he breathed so much life into it that it's kind of astonishing. Like every time I revisit it, every time I rewatch it, I gain new appreciation for his performance, and it's just absolutely a kind of landmark performance in The Wire. I posted this on Reddit because I'm I comment on Reddit. I've been rewatching The Wire for the upteenth time, and every time I get it to season 2, my appreciation for Ransone's performance grows. Ziggy is such an intentionally frustrating and layered character, and the way Ransone played him, often going big and playing into those frustrating qualities, was some genius acting in my opinion. So anyway, highly recommend The Wire and It Chapter 2 and James Ransone's career. Rest in peace. Fortunately, I don't have any other news items to bring us down even further. Joe, do you want to get into our feature review of the evening of the recently released, a few months ago, The Long Walk?
Right. Yes, it's the hot movie of the moment. So
yes, it's funny because it's not even like streamable yet. It's just on digital now, I think. So like we're in that in between, but anyway, The Long Walk is available on digital. It was released in theaters September 12th, 2025. And the plot summary, courtesy of IMDb, is a group of teenage boys compete in an annual contest known as The Long Walk, in which they must maintain a certain walking speed or get shot. The movie was directed by Francis Lawrence and written by J.T. Molnar, adapted from the novel of the same name, The Long Walk, by Stephen King, writing as Richard Bachman. And the cast includes Cooper Hoffman, David Johnson, Garrett Waring, Tut Nyote, Charlie Plummer, Ben Wang, I just lost it, Joshua Ojic, Mark Hamill, Roman Griffin Davis, and Judy Greer. So, Joe, you read the book before watching the movie. I just finished the book, and watch the movie. Of course, we're going to do a non-spoiler review and a spoiler review. I don't know if we'll get into book spoilers in the spoiler review, but to kind of get us kicked off on the non-spoiler review, what did you think of The Long Walk and how it compared as an adaptation to the original novel?
Yeah, it was surprisingly faithful. That most adaptations, mostly try to be faithful, I think, but they invariably, stray from the source material in some way. They have to condense things. They have to. There are certain things that don't necessarily make sense in the context of film. Things that you can't replicate, in a really meaningful way that won't land the same way. So there are almost always some deviations, and there is an important deviation from the book to the film, but we'll probably talk about that in the spoiler section, because it involves the very end of the film. But I think as adaptations go, it was as faithful as it could have been. And I don't know necessarily how I feel about that in a full way. That it didn't. I guess it didn't detract from it, too much. But it didn't do a lot, I think, to necessarily stand out from the source material. But I don't know. Again, I don't know that that's a bad thing necessarily. I'm betraying my overall thoughts, which I guess I should just throw out and get out of the way. Is that I thought this was a fine movie. I've been watching Stephen King adaptations since I was a child. Obviously, going back to stuff like Cujo and Cat's Eye, which most people wouldn't mention, The Shining, and all of those from the 80s. I've been Carrie, and sorry, I'm going to leave a bunch of them out because there's so many of them. But this one was another of those. It wasn't the best, and it wasn't hardly the worst, man. But it was somewhere straight in the middle, and I think it was entertaining and fun. But it didn't blow my mind. It didn't change the world neither the book nor the movie. But they were both entertaining enough to me, enjoyable. I liked the conceit of it, and I think sometimes the film maybe wasn't able to grasp the tension that of the situation kind of presents, but I think it did fine overall. I'm certainly going to recommend seeing this film if you're any sort of fan of Stephen King, but if you miss it, it's not going to be the last. It's not the be all and end all by any stretch of the imagination. But
sure,
but it deserves to be seen, I think, if not demanding it. So yeah, that's kind of in a long answer. That's my short response.
Yeah, it's funny because it's not the best or worst Stephen King adaptation this year, even. It is kind of right there in the middle. I am going to share something that I did not think about until today, or last night when I was watching the movie. This is regarding the book. Again, did a whole walk along sort of project where I talked about it. Spent 10, almost 11 hours of my life walking and listening and talking about this book. And here's the thing. I did not at any point in the 6 episodes of Patreon exclusive recordings that I posted, at no point did I realize that this was a somewhat of an allegory to Vietnam. I never, it never crossed my mind. And it's funny because as I'm listening to it and talking about it, walking these trails and stuff, I'm sitting there, I say multiple times, why would anyone do this? This is so crazy. What's going on? And apparently King didn't there's a quote from a Vanity Fair article or something that he said that he didn't explicitly write it about Vietnam, but I mean, it's all there. And it's just maybe it's a generational thing for me because I'm a millennial, also an honorary Gen Z and soon to be an honorary Gen Alpha, self-appointed, but but like, because it's all right there, like a lottery system, young kids getting selected to do this thing that literally all but one of them will die in, and it's government like it's Vietnam. It's an allegory for Vietnam. So that kind of opened it up a little bit for me. And what I really appreciate about the movie is that it captures that in a dystopic way. Just in terms of just the wardrobe, even, it just looks like, Vietnam era wardrobes and everything. And it's really pretty apparent when you watch it. But one of my big kind of not concerns, but something I gave a little bit of pause to was knowing that Francis Lawrence was directing it. And going into it, I was thinking like, okay, it's a good director for that, since he has a history of doing the Hunger Games movies, but those are like YA, PG-13 adaptations of YA PG-13 books. And like, I think I'm still now, like, 8 years on, a little bit still scorned by the Dark Tower movie, how they tried to make that a YA movie. So I was like a little concerned, like as I was getting deeper and deeper into the book, I was like, I'm preparing myself for them not going full on like disturbing, really unsettling stuff. And I am so impressed that it went for it. Like, there are some very graphic scenes, and it's like they don't shy away from the violence quite as much as I expected them to. And as far as it being an adaptation, it is a very faithful adaptation up until the point that it's not. But I will say that the first like up to the point where there's a big diversion from the book, I think that this is a very, very good example of how to adapt a novel into a film setting, because they change up some things about the general thing. Like, it's in the book, it's 100 kids. In the movie, it's 50 kids, one from each state. They go into like this voiceover about kind of giving backstory of like, oh, there was some war, and the reason for the long walk is to boost morale and get get production started and really boost the economy and stuff. Like, none of that is explicitly said in the book, and that's some interesting color for that. But in addition to that, the way that the movie consolidates a few of the characters from the book, but like giving some attributes to characters, like erasing one character and putting like his stuff into another character, I think that's a very clean fit. And I think it worked really well to add more dimension to the characters as well. So I was really impressed with the adaptation, and the performances were fantastic. I mean, Cooper Hoffman and David Johnson are both just amazing in this movie. So that's my word salad of me being media illiterate while reading the book and me appreciating the movie.
It was it honestly, again, and I'm a Gen Xer, and it took me about 10 minutes into and I also audiobook, same method as you. It took me about 10 minutes. I was like, oh yeah, this is Vietnam. Okay, cool. Yeah, I get that. And that's one thing that the film did, I also thought did really well, was the way that the film was sort of not washed out, but muted in its color scheme, and everyone's wearing, tans and browns and light greens, and it feels like they're soldiers. If you watch, some of the Vietnam movies, especially from the 80s and 90s, where even something like Forrest Gump, where obviously there's a kind of a comedic element to it, but if you listen to the important things, but it's stuff like Full Metal Jacket and Platoon, of course, and Born on the 4th of July. Forrest Gump, I'm going to just drop in there because I already referenced it. It looks like those films, or in Forrest Gump's case, that section of the film, where it's very kind of oddly brightly lit, and again, everyone's wearing those colors, these kind of pale yellows or greens or beige khaki kind of things. Everybody's wearing boots, it seemed like, or I mean, not everybody, but they're wearing they're not wearing Air Jordans, or something like that. They're all very, of course, they didn't exist at the time of either of when the film was created, but it just doesn't, it's just like there's no product placement there for that kind of stuff. It is just they're all wearing very nondescript stuff, and it fits in with that, that attitude and that the vibe of that time period. And everyone's kind of got their backpacks, and they're ambling along. It just that's exactly how it feels, and down to the odd excitement of it, and whereas you putting yourself into that situation as someone who is a generation removed from the draft, I just thought that would be the most terrifying thing I can think of. To be for example, watching television and waiting for someone to draw the number that you have, that you're holding, that's going to send you off ostensibly to murder people and or be murdered. And I can't conceive of that. And I certainly don't think subsequent generations could really conceive of that in a real way. But most of the people here readily volunteered, and that again vibes with both World War II, Korea, and and Vietnam, where so those are certainly the parallels, and it was obvious to me, and it of course is the point in a lot of ways. Although, like you said, Stephen King himself said he didn't consciously do it. I think he would probably call it a happy coincidence that maybe he didn't, that he was doing it purposefully the whole time, but he didn't know he was doing it purposefully the whole time. And I've read enough of his nonfiction stuff to know that too. So to know, that by the way, On Writing is a book I have recommended very recently to someone, and I'll recommend it to anyone listening to this too, because it's brilliant. God, it's so good. It was so good. And I will say, this is, I don't know, this is maybe dark, but there is a website called wouldIHaveBeenDrafted.com, and I would have been drafted in the Vietnam War, lot number 22. And I just looked on because I don't know offhand your birthday, but I just looked on Facebook and I found it. So, Joe, you were drafted as well, lot number 142. Yeah.
So,
that is
interesting.
Just terrifying that you're forcibly sent off to war, and that is just unimaginable to me. But but again, that's really for people, because I was the same way, listening to the early moments of the book, thinking, why in the world is anybody doing this? Well, it defies logic. But then you think about that generation. A lot of people signed up for that. Think about, Captain America, even the story of Captain America. Yeah. How hard he was trying to get drafted into the army so that he could go fight. That was the attitude. And, as foolish as it seems, it was the prevailing sentiment of these generations. And it is absolutely terrifying. So, it is. But I think they do just a good enough job in the film of setting that up, that it doesn't, there's still room for that. It is an unimaginable thing to volunteer for it, but have just enough for you to kind of understand it. Yeah. Oh yeah. Some of the other things about the movie to talk about on non-spoilers, I feel like, I think you may have touched on this a little bit, but, I don't want to compare it too much to the book, because
different format. It's hard to capture everything.
Yeah.
I do commend the movie for capturing as much as it did from the book, like just even like lifting specific things from the book, like interactions and conversations. Like it really sells that camaraderie that grows among these kids on this walk, while also doing well to showcase how their like sanity slips so much and how they get so agitated as the walk goes on. But on the other hand, I feel like the book is so entrenched in that like shared psychosis that they experience and that grows, that I feel like the movie is a little bit lacking in that. But I think that that's more just format. Like it wouldn't have been quite as effective or possible to really tell the story, the psychological story, as thoroughly as the book did. But that was one kind of, I don't know if I'd say shortcoming, but something that I felt like they did the best they could, and it was solid.
Yeah, and that is the interesting thing about this movie, is that it's that there's that camaraderie of everyone who they're competing against each other, and there's some talk about it of, I hope you all just die, sorry, hope you die, because that means I'm going to be alive. And there's talk about that, but strangely, none of them really truly lean into that part of it.
Right.
Even the guys, the more villainous characters in here are the true villain. Number one is the Major, right? Like the Major and sort of society by extension. But it was, who was it? It was Barkovich was the one who was unpopular. And then was it Stebbins?
Stebbins.
Yeah, and even the two of them were. What I expected was there would be those sequences where one of them trips somebody or kicks someone or does something underhand, just a bump to cause someone else to to stumble and lose their footing, and then they go down, and then they get their ticket punched, as the terminology goes. But Stephen King, Richard Bachman took care of that in the rules of the game. But again, in a modern context, that feels like something that they would do. And I would almost bet Francis Lawrence had to talk some studio exec out of saying, out of filming one of those where, there's just someone who's just a bastard and just, and there is that sequence where, there is a sequence early on, which, I won't get into too much, but someone dies because of something someone else does. But that's almost the inciting incident for that to stop. And I think it's a cleaner story, just overall, film or book, that Stephen King had that foresight to not have a character do that.
Absolutely.
To not just like ruthlessly kill someone, and to let them all band together as sort of as brothers. Even in the end, they're helping each other, even after they pledge not to at some point. But and they're dragging people along because they're now friends. Again, against all logic and reason, it just is like, yes, you're saving this person so that you can both continue the suffering that you're going through.
Yeah.
And it's like in a perfect world it would just end. But but it was, it was certainly an interesting choice, and I think it's a better story overall because they did that and didn't take the easy way out of the bastard character.
Absolutely.
People.
That was one of the big things that I was really impressed with the book. As I was going along with it, I kept thinking like, and it's documented on my Patreon, but like I kept thinking, oh, in this section of chapters, okay, Barkovich is going to be like the big bad of the group or whatever.
Yeah.
Or, oh no, wait, Stebbins is kind of coming into play. Like he's kind of being a little coy and mysterious. And it took me a while to like kind of get my head around it. Like there's no good and evil here among the kids, and that's by design. Like it's such an interesting story to have. Like they don't fall into that binary of good and evil. And I think that that's so smartly done, because yeah, they are brothers in this endeavor, and it ups the ante of tragedy as more and more fall off and more are killed, either by just luck of the draw or their just their mental health just getting the best of them, like their psychosis getting the better of them, basically. The first death, I'm so glad that they honored that from the book, because it's just the way that that character goes out is really something. So yeah, it sets the tone.
yeah, and you do really see the kind of the physical toll and the and how the emotional toll and the just the mental toll of it all is really just as bad. Like, those are three parallel concerns through the course of the film, and it's that is, again, to its credit, that's what's really is kind of the biggest strength of the movie, is that it's the battle inside that is the most important, and that's that kind of always proves to be the difference as it's going along.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, what else can we really talk about in non-spoilers? I know we're kind of dancing around.
I loved Mark Hamill. I thought we have it's so funny because he's the villain of the piece and he's in it very little, and that's kind of one thing I do want to touch on. I feel like he was developed a little better in the film than he was in the book, even, but he was still pretty underrepresented in the through the movie. He sort of bounces in and out, and I do kind of wish he had been a little more constant of a presence and had filled that role in a it was almost just like, well, he's in the book, we kind of have to have him. That's kind of how I felt at times, and I don't think that's the truth, but it just felt that way from time to time, because there would just be long stretches where he was gone, where I wish he would, and I think in the book there are times where he sort of celebrates when somebody's killed, or like, in a way, and maybe not necessarily celebrates, but he's he has a kind of a blasé attitude about it, and they really kind of mute that a little bit more through the film, and so it's I wish it would have, the ending would have been earned a little more if they'd played him up, and I'm sure that they restrained Mark Hamill, because he could. We know, I mean, he's the Joker, and the animated Joker, and has been played plenty of roles like this. He could have really played up and been a really memorable mustache twirling villain, and it was really kind of he played it a little bit more straight than I even would have liked him to.
Yeah, and I do agree. Like, they definitely bumped him up, even though he is not very present in the movie. Like, they bumped him up from the book. In the book, I feel like for the most part, he is like this mysterious figure in the distance.
Yes,
and that's ominous and disturbing in its own right. In the movie, I'll talk a little bit about it in spoilers, in more context, but I feel like they're, like you mentioned, how like you assume that the studio, like they had, like Francis Lawrence had to fight the studio probably to not have like infighting with the kids, that like sabotaging and everything. I feel like there are choices made in this movie that represent maybe, I don't know if I would go so far as to say like a lost fight with the studio.
yeah
because I think it's how because I think it's how JT Molnar wrote the script, but there's something I just can't, like, I've been wrestling with, so I'll say that, I'll tease that out there. But Mark Hamill is fantastic, and I love that he, like, in 2025, he is in Life of Chuck and The Long Walk, playing wildly different characters, and both are incredible performances. I still think his performance in The Life of Chuck is maybe the best performance I've seen from him, just in general. It's just so good, and he's fantastic here. He's menacing. He's like, with his introduction being just a vehicle for exposition, and then getting like him being ever present throughout the movie, popping in here and there, and then once he gets to the finale, it's just like, it's really good. It's really well done, constrained storytelling as well. So I really appreciated that, what they did with the Major, with a few asterisks attached to it, because we need to talk about the ending when we get to spoilers.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. Anything else in non-spoilers?
Yeah, no. You know, I continue to love Judy Greer. She has,
oh yes,
she has. I think her role is, well, they did lose the girlfriend, Raymond's girlfriend, Garrity's girlfriend, and kind of just, melded her with the mom, which is fine. I think in the end it's fine. It's a loss. That it was weird to me in a sense where it's like, oh yeah, he's doing this walk for his mom, but but the girlfriend character in the book was not really fleshed out enough for it to have real meaning. So this, if anything, it's just a little more natural, I think. But I love her. I was really happy that she was in it. Me too, even for a smaller role.
Yeah, and she's a Stephen King adaptation alum. She was in the 2012 or 2013 Carrie remake.
Oh wow!
So, yeah,
I don't remember that.
Yeah, I'm always a fan of seeing like Stephen King actors pop up in other Stephen King things. It's always fun. It's always nice. So I think that's about it for our non-spoiler review. Yeah, I'm itching to get to our spoiler talk.
Same.
Before we get to that, Joe, what did you rate this on Letterboxd, and did you review it on Midwest Film Journal?
I did not write the review for it, and I'm gonna have to go back and look. I want to say I gave it 3 or 3.5. Sorry, I should have had that pulled up. And of course now it's
no, you're fine.
It's going to forever
of course
load,
it was
so
months ago at this point too.
Right, yeah.
So
there we go.
I don't expect you to have it on hand.
Well, I should have, just so that, just so that I could say that. I gave it, what did I give it? I gave it 3. I gave it a solid 3. And I think that's I think it's a solid 3. It could be a 3.5. It's not a 4 or 4.5, but it could be a 3.5 if I caught it on a good day.
Nice. Interestingly enough, I rated it 4 stars. Did I rate it 4 stars? No, I rated it 4 stars. Yeah. And like parts of me wanted to rate it 4.5, but I think that some of the choices made and it just kind of didn't gel with me, which we'll talk about in spoilers. So it's a gentleman 4. Yeah. But yeah, I really liked it. A standout adaptation of a Stephen King property. It's great. So are you ready to go into spoilers for The Long Walk?
Yeah, let's spoil this sucker.
All right. Well, for some reason, I do not have the trailer clip queued up, so I'm going to have to.
We're just overly prepared today.
I know, it's so weird. Like I know that I added it, but apparently it didn't add. So, So it's loading. Terrible radio for you guys. But it's almost there. I'm going to play a clip from the trailer. When we come back from this clip from the trailer for The Long Walk, we are going to be spoiling the movie, and we might spoil the book here and there. I don't know if I'll be able to not spoil the book, so I'll give a fair warning before that. So if you don't want the book spoiled, I'll give you a warning. But here's a clip from the trailer for The Long Walk. When we come back, we are going to be spoiling the movie.
It took me a while to realize the truth of this. This is walk or die.
Warning. You'll walk as long as you can. Warning. But sometimes the body won't listen.
Warning!
For some, your heart will stop.
Warning!
For others, your brain.
Warning!
And the blood will flow suddenly.
Warning! Warning!
There's one winner And no finish line.
All right, so spoilers on for The Long Walk. So this movie, let's talk spoilers. Where should we begin with spoilers, Joe?
Well, let's begin at the end.
Yes. So here's where let's talk about the ending, and then we'll go into like slight book spoilers, because I have some grievances to bring up. So what did you think of the ending? Of course, the ending has Garrity, it's Garrity and McVrees. They are the two remaining, and in the movie, McVrees starts to give himself up so that Garrity can win, but Garrity convinces him not to, and then turns the table. He sacrifices himself, and then and then McVrees kills the Major. So how did you feel about this ending? And then I'll bite my tongue about the book.
Yeah, it's weird because it's hard, because that was not the ending of the book. The ending of the book was, and you got the end of it much more recently than me. Mm-hmm. So Garrity does win in the book. Sorry, I'll just flat.
Oh yeah. We're going to spoil the book ending. Sorry.
And then he kills the Major. Is that
not
right?
In the book.
Not in the book. He doesn't kill him. He was going to, but he doesn't. Right?
No.
So
I don't even think that's it. Yeah. So I can just let me just
because
say
he leaves, right? He like walks off at the end. And it's like the idea, the notion is that maybe he's not going to survive. It's a very vague ending, right? Comparatively.
Yeah. Here's how the book ended, basically. Throughout the entire walk, Garrity is he's maintaining his sanity and everything, and as everything ramps up and everything like ends, basically, he is the last remaining one. And the end of the book has Garrity in front of the Major congratulating him, asking him what his wish is, but Garrity's mind is so broken and torn apart that he sees a vision of like this dark figure in front of him that he thinks is remaining walkers that are still there. He's trying to make sense of it. He's trying to say, like, is that you, Barkovich? Is that you, Baker? Is that you, whoever? But it's just this figure in front of him, and he's not listening to anything the Major is saying. He's not understanding that he won. And the last line of the book is that somehow he found the energy to run. And that to me is that his psyche is so broken and everything that he's going to keep going. He's not going to be able to understand that the long walk is over. He's going to walk until he literally dies from walking. And that, I think, is such a profound and bleak ending. And the movie just does something different.
Yes.
Which I'm not a purist for book to film adaptations. I'm really not. And I can kind of reconcile the ending of the movie with the book, with the tone of the book. So to kind of give an overview, they also changed something in the movie where Garrity's father was murdered by the Major in front of him and his mother because he was teaching in keeping literature and art that was not allowed by the government. So the whole reason for Garrity going on the walk is that he his goal was to get a carbine and kill the Major as revenge. That I don't like, because it makes it a personal vendetta, and I think that draws focus away from the dystopian world that it's building and everything. And in the way that I reconcile it, and I'm sorry, I know I'm just blabbering at this point, but the way I reconcile that is by the end of the movie, when Garrity gives himself up and McVrees wins, he chooses to get the carbine and he chooses to kill the major, and then he walks off. I think that is as much of a Hollywoodized ending, like studio ending, that can still capture some of the bleakness of the book, because it's saying that McFreeze, who was trying to talk Garrity out of killing the major, he was trying to talk him out of it. He was saying that, like, you can't come back from that. Like, that's something that you don't have it in you. You can't do that and still be who you are. For him to then become that himself is the bleakness, a light bleakness that's signaled from the book. And I appreciate that, but I think it would have just been so cool to see the book ending on film. Like, I just think that would have been cool. So anyway, well, what are your thoughts on it?
I think I pretty much agree with that. Because I was sitting there watching, as I'm watching the film in the theater, and I was like, what's going to happen here? What's going to happen? Is it going to match that? And I kind of assumed there would be something different, that there would be a sort of a switch on it, a twist. And I will say, for the book, I had kind of I interjected my own bits into it, where I was like, oh, maybe it's the walk-in man that he sees at the end.
Oh, that would have been cool.
I was like, how cool would that have been? And that would have been on brand for Stephen King at the time.
Oh,
Obviously he did have a lot of interconnectivity within his stories, but also this was maybe not quite that. This was maybe not quite the story for that, for something like that. But I was like, oh, that would have been kind of cool. But it was, what they did was, it was like, well, I guess they had to do something, and it was like that. I kind of agree with you that the original ending would have been fun, but it probably would have been a lot of like, what was that? It would have been hard to pull that one off in a way that people would get what they were supposed to be getting. So I get why they wanted it to be different, but I agree with you that wasn't necessarily it, the way that they did choose. It was a choice, and that's kind of what I thought walking. I was like, well, that was a choice that they made, so okay. And that was kind of the end of it. It was just not. It just was. It was not a letdown necessarily, but it wasn't. It didn't send me out in the right frame of mind.
Same.
Yeah,
and that's why I wonder if there was any studio interjection there, because JT Molnar, like I saw Strange Darling, I thought it was okay, but that movie was at least stylistic in a way and written in a way that is, while it was pretty, formulaic, just in a nonlinear format, it still tried to do something unique. And I feel like this script feels like it's a little pigeonholed by presumably studio executives saying like, okay, well, we can't just have a bunch of kids dying on a walk without having some kind of like big thing driving one of them. Like, we need to make it personal. We need to do this. And it's like, you can do that, sure. But also, the whole point of it is that it's this dystopian future and this dystopian world where they're marching off to death for the hope of maybe being the one to get millions and get a prize. It just felt like there was something a little bit lost in translation, even though it does try to capture that bleakness through McFreeze's character at the end, at least lightly. So I don't know. I'm not too down on it, but I'm just like, it feels very like that's the point where it's like, okay, this feels like that is the one part of this movie where it feels like, oh yeah, this was directed by the director of The Hunger Games.
Yeah.
Like, it just feels a little light on that front.
You hit it there.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right.
But I did have a theory as I was listening to the book. I did have a theory, and I honestly think that I have a better ending than both the book and the movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, all apologies to King. I don't mean to ruffle any feathers. I mean, he and I go way back. But I had it in my head that, like, my theory as I was listening to the book was that once they get to the end, once the winner of the long walk is winning it and has won it, my thought was like, what if the last page of the book is Garrity winning, and then them saying like, well, like, what do you want your prize to be? And then he's like, oh, I want peace on Earth, whatever. Like, I want this intangible object. I want this thing. I want a gold car or something. And like, what if they were just like, okay, here are some shoes. It'll be back where we started. Get walking.
Yeah.
Like, that would have been, I don't know. I feel like that would have been really interesting. Not to say that I'm better than King or Molnar or
right.
Francis Lawrence, but
we all have ideas, you know, and it's like, there's any number of ways that could have gone.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, and it's sometimes we can sometimes go, oh, it would have been really cool if they'd have done that. And
yeah.
And I think that certainly is not a worse idea than the two that they came up with between a professional Hollywood screenwriter and, maybe the greatest, most prolific writer of the last 50 years or so.
Yeah. Oh, I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah. I mean, and the intellectuals will eat me alive for calling him the greatest writer of the last half century.
Oh, fuck him.
Yeah,
it's accurate.
You can rag on him all you want, but he'll dry his tears from that with his $100 bills.
Yes, and, here's the thing. I truly, in my heart of hearts, believe that he is a master storyteller. He has so much to say. He's not only prolific, but he is someone who, for decades, has captured the spirit of Middle America and flyover states America. And then you have MAGA idiots saying like, "Oh, he's a billionaire," or he's, he doesn't know anything. Like, you're a fucking idiot if you think that, because he has been writing about, you, like your specific class and your specific tax bracket for decades. But anyway, I do highly, highly recommend checking out the Year of Underrated Stephen King podcast with my friend Kim C. She goes into depth. Like, she is like an intellectual who like started her podcast specifically because like the people in her academic circles were like, "Oh, Stephen King, really?" And she's set out to prove that he is a brilliant storyteller and so much more than what he is known for. So check out the Year of Underrated Stephen King. But anyway, something else I want to talk about with it is that one of the changes that they made was that they said like the major only allowed crowds when there was 2 walkers left. And that's a very big departure from the book, because the book has like people like along the path cheering them on. And that was something I felt in the book was so disturbing on in and of itself, because it's a spectator sport of watching these kids get killed. I felt like that was some incredible world building in the book. And for them to kind of just discount that in the movie, I don't know if that, the cynic in me is like, I don't know if that's like a budgetary thing. Like, they don't want to pay for like the set design and the extras and everything, or if it was more, if there was more of a specific reason for that, having to do with maybe the Vietnam allegory of it all. Like, they march them off to war and then forget about them, or don't account for them. I'm not sure, but how did you feel about that change?
It's kind of that cheering them on, right? Like the Vietnam War was so controversial among the people that it was called the first televised war because there were camera crews and things that were sent that brought back footage, and it was so, you have that balance of the rah rah go USA, where the kind of the price of it is people, young boys being just brutally just killed and, their bodies just torn apart in the most violent possible ways. And, if you're watching a good war movie, it will capture that. And it's, you think about the way war movies were made, John Wayne movies, and, versus once we hit the 80s and we get to Oliver Stone and we get to Steven Spielberg and, people who are making war movies that are more realistic, and it's not the same. It's not good guys versus bad guys. It's, we're all just young kids who are dying for what reason. And that's kind of the and that's the point of this too, is that, that we're here, it's like for our amusement. And that's a lot of, it's an allegory for, Vietnam, of course, and for politics in general, where, there these things that impact the lives of people and sometimes will lead to people dying. And, we throw it around like a spectator sport. Like, we're debating it with this gleam in our eye where we're just owning other people when, the things that we're debating are life and death for other people. So it's, that's kind of in Trump's America is I think is a pretty salient point we need to keep in mind as we go along, because
absolutely. Yeah. Yep. Well said. I agree. I agree completely.
And that's one of the things Stephen King has always been able to capture, in a pretty insightful way, I think. So, absolutely. Intellectuals can go to hell for that if they don't like it.
Yes.
I'll just say that you do what he's done for the masses in terms of kind of shaping minds and, thinking, just thinking. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be in a think tank somewhere, debating philosophy to be to really have your finger on the pulse of what culture really is and what the world and politics are too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anything else in spoilers for The Long Walk?
No, I think that's about it.
All right. Yeah. So that is our review of The Long Walk. I unfortunately don't think it's going to make my top 10, but it was, I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. 4 stars. Joe, you rated it 3 stars. Of course, you can follow Joe on Letterboxd at Joe R. Shearer and follow his work at MidwestFilmJournal.com and wherever else you can find him online. And we're going to go into, we're linking the show notes to all of his stuff. We're going to go into probably a short non-spoiler review of The Plague. But before that, I'm going to read this little spiel that I have. So before we get to our secondary review, I want to take a quick moment to remind you that if you like the show, please take a moment to follow us on social media and subscribe to and rate the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, or whatever your preferred podcast app is. And don't forget to subscribe to the Obsessive Viewer Podcast YouTube channel as well, where I am posting more and more of the video versions of these podcasts, and also some YouTube shorts and some reels and stuff over there. And if you're interested in starting a podcast of your own, you can go to Libsyn and use the promo code OBSESS. When you sign up for a new account, you'll get up to 2 months free depending on when you sign up, and we'll get a commission on it as well. More details on that in the show notes of this episode. And now back to the show. It's loud. So I'm going to play a clip from the trailer for The Plague, and then we are going to go into a non-spoiler secondary review. So stay tuned for that.
So what's with Eli?
Eli's got the plague. It's not funny, bro.
It's like contagious?
Incredibly, but only through touch, so if you're exposed, oh man, you just gotta wash yourself like that. Turns your brain into baby food. No brain, no nothing.
Like it's fake. So can you please tell everyone that I'm good?
Okay.
I think there's something wrong with me.
What do you mean?
I just feel something's wrong.
Someone giving you a hard time, Ben.
All right, and our secondary reviews of The Plague. It is opening in theaters this week, apparently. And the premise, according to IMDb, is A socially awkward tween endures the ruthless hierarchy of a water polo camp, his anxiety spiraling into psychological turmoil over the summer. The movie was written and directed by Charlie Polinger, and it stars Joel Edgerton, Everett Blunk, Kenny Rasmussen, and Lennox Espy. So, Joe, you recently reviewed The Plague on MidwestFilmJournal.com, in which you said that it is a waking nightmare that realizes the worst fears for anyone who remembers the social anxiety of new activities as a child. What were your non-spoiler thoughts on The Plague?
Yeah. So this one is in my top 5. It is actually my number 5 for the year. And it is, it really kind of captures that moment of, that kind of moment of people's lives when they are young and impressionable. It's funny because I was just thinking about something I hadn't thought about for years just a minute ago while that trailer was playing. And what I was thinking was this. When I was in 2nd grade, someone told me that, now this is, if you guys remember, I don't know if, well, you might be too young to remember, there's a television show called V. And it was about aliens who come to Earth and they claim to be here in peace, but they're actually lizard people who want to take over the planet. And, so like the big reveal of that show would be like, everyone looks like humans, even though some of them are aliens, and they're revealed as aliens by tearing their face off to reveal the lizard skin underneath, which sounds ridiculous, but as a 6 or 7 year old kid, like, it was terrifying to me. And anyway, one of my friends convinced me that a girl in my school was actually one of the visitors, which is what they called that race. And I was absolutely terrified of her. Now, I wasn't 12. I wasn't a tween as they were in this. I think they were 12-year-old kids for the most part, 11, 12, 13.
Yeah.
But the feeling is the same. And to my knowledge, that girl never knew that I had that thought about her or that anyone ever said that. Thank goodness, because it would have probably have been devastating. But
I thought you were going to say, to my knowledge, she was an alien.
No, I'm pretty sure she was not. I think she was just a normal girl. And I think he chose this girl at random because, we used to play V and we liked to scare each other. And we were, even back then, we're horror movie fans. And so it was a way for him to, like, to freak me out a little bit. But, if she had known about, like, how heartbreaking would that have been for her?
Oh, yeah. Traumatizing.
And that's really kind of this movie in a nutshell, where, little prick kids who think it's, who are looking to, make themselves feel like the big kids, and, they want to be cool for everyone. And they make up some story about someone else that in their mind that they rationalize as, oh, it's just a joke, they do that without regard for what it does to the person, who's the object of that. And, I think most of us as adults have moments where we were that person who was picked on, and other moments where we were the ones who were picking on kids. And, and I certainly have those moments where I look back. I always thought of myself as a mild-mannered kid, and I wasn't a bully to my knowledge. But then I think back to certain moments and I think, oh, well, man, that was a really shitty thing to do and to say. And, I have those moments in my life. And that is the heart of this movie, is kind of, to me, the quintessential scene happens in the kind of the first third, where, and you can actually see it if you're watching the videos. It's actually the screenshot of on the Plague's IMDb. So the Plague's IMDb page, if you scroll down, it's like videos, and here's the trailer. The still shot is actually from that scene, and it's the scene where, Ben realizes that these kids are picking on this kid Eli, and that, they're saying he has the plague, which, you can, in a lighter hearted film, was The Cheese Touch, and that's Diary of a Wimpy Kid. But there, there are plenty of things like that where, you make up these just kind of random, arbitrary, stupid and pointless things. But kids and using their imagination, it's kind of your imagination working against you or using your imagination for evil, because everyone as a kid, you play into all of that stuff and you buy into it. Even if you're just playing, so to speak, there's still buy-in, and the game doesn't end when it should end, and people get hurt. And that's kind of, again, is this. But this is the gist of it, where there's Ben, this kid who knows that and recognizes that they're picking on this other kid, but then he also kind of joins in on it because he also wants to be cool, and he also doesn't want to be that kid. So that's just, to me, is the most terrifying and stark aspect of this film, is that there's not you think you were the good kid that was picked on, like you think you were the hero of the story. You were not. You maybe you are at times, but also at times you're the bad guy, and you're the asshole, so to speak. And that's kind of the largest message that I think that at least the message that sticks out the most to me from this, is that we're all guilty. We're all equally complicit in this. And it's terrible. And all we can do is try to be better. It's like, that's the lesson. Be better. And
oh yeah.
And it's hard. It's certainly hard, especially at that age when you don't know anything.
Yeah, the groupthink mentality, the group mentality of these kids as they're kind of navigating this socialized arena that they're in, basically. Yeah. The way that Eli becomes like kind of a lightning rod of like, he's the odd man out, because he's kind of strange. Like he has something that's different from them that they are going to hone in on. And it's because kids are so deeply insecure, and they haven't been alive long enough to realize that the things that are going on around them are not the most important things in the world, because the things that are going on around them are the most important things to the world, because they don't have a view of the world. They don't have they're not old enough to really have that context or whatever. So what they do is they're masking their own insecurities by preying on someone presumably weaker than them's insecurity, or less confident than them's insecurity. And there's just this really kind of touching way that I think it's Ben and Eli kind of bond in a certain way. And it like the way that the movie handles that bond that grows between them, while also playing into the kind of body horror, psychological horror aspect of the movie, I think is incredibly potent and really, really worth accolades and everything. And it's a shame, because this was, to peek behind the curtain, this was the last movie that I saw before awards voting for the IFJA. I watched it I think the night before or the morning of our voting, our meeting, and we did get it nominated for several awards. Unfortunately, we didn't get, it didn't win any of the awards. The IFJA awards were kind of swept by Sinners and One Battle After Another. You guys will hear more about that in the next episode of the podcast. That is coming out very soon, if I can get it all worked out. But anyway, I do think there are certain categories that this should absolutely have won, but score being one of them for sure. But as far as a very psychologically draining emotional roller coaster, this was absolutely incredible for me. I really liked it.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I really like this movie. It's the kind of movie that really resonates with me. It's the thing, it overlaps my, a lot of my neuroses, I guess.
Sure.
As someone who, as a child, I was number one. I was a stepchild of a military man, And so as a kid, we moved around a lot, and I was at a different elementary school virtually every year. Through until I hit middle school, it was every single year basically I was switching schools.
Jeez.
And so I'm very aware of that, that dynamic of trying to ingratiate yourself to new kids and to see the kids who were like the top dogs, so to speak, and you're being thrown into a swimming pool with all these other kids, and you're like, you're going to swim or you're going to drown. And it's like, what are you going to do? Are you going to just stay to yourself and go under the water? Or are you going to float by yourself out somewhere? Or are you going to get in there and be part of the synchronized swimming team and do what everybody else is doing? And it's hard.
Did you intentionally make that metaphor because of the water polo of it all?
Up. I wasn't. I
love it.
Didn't until I made the connection, and I was like, oh, I mean, they're synchronized swimmers in a sense, it's like, but that water polo, that metaphor is real apt, and that's Charlie Polinger's metaphor, and he played it up as well as he could, because if you're sitting there thinking about it and you're like, the hell is this, a water polo movie? Like, what the hell is that? but it's not. It's that's the vehicle, right? It's water polo is an oddly violent game that's played in a swimming pool, and that's kind of the that's certainly is a fitting avatar, so to speak, of this sort of these sort of issues that they're raising, where you're part of a team, or you're the outcast, or you're the one being picked on. And Ben had a choice to make with Eli and with all these other boys, and when you don't make it, bad things happen. When you don't make that choice in a real way, then bad things can happen. And that's kind of again, that's the message of this film. Is because his indecision and he knows what's right, and he tries to do the right thing, but he can't commit to it enough to really make it, to really not make just horrible things happen throughout the course of the film. Just really, really incredible. And I'm so glad that we were able to get this episode like done here, because
I think it's really perfect for these two movies to be paired together. Because they're very, very interesting dark looks at youth. It's really good. Joel Edgerton was also quite good in this.
Fantastic,
he's kind of a supporting role. Like, the kids are incredible. Like, throughout this entire movie, all of the performers are so good, and it's so impressive. Like, these are people whose careers I'm going to keep an eye out for, because they were just phenomenal. The acting is very good, and the kids are very believable. There are no kind of wooden line deliveries the way a lot of movies that are centered around kids have. At least a couple of kids who aren't polished enough as actors, and these kids were all just naturalistic. This felt like they were the kids who were doing this. None of them really felt like actors. People who were, they're not Nickelodeon performers, or, for example. These are people who are, these are all people who are solid actors. And, and maybe some of that is through the direction and through editing, but they all come off very well and very naturalistic. And they, even that there was that scene in the diner, or, with Eli and with Joel Edgerton's Daddy Wags, I think is what they call him. I think it was Ben and him.
And
was it?
Sorry, did I say Eli? Ben is who I meant. Between Ben and Daddy Wags, there's a moment where they're in a diner, and he's in Joel Edgerton's Daddy Wags character, who's the kind of the coach of this water polo camp, and he is struggling with that. Boys will be boys versus they're crossing the line. They're obviously crossing the line with things, and he recognizes it, and he takes that he has, and I kind of look at him as I'd look at myself if I was in that situation where just he finally can't restrain himself and lashes out against kind of the head of the bullies, where it's like you have to realize also he's a child, and that's kind of the curse of being an adult, is that you have to understand. This is something I'm understanding more and more as a father, is that when there are two children going at it with each other, who are fighting in some way, you have to understand both sides of it. It's not as easy as this kid is clearly wrong and this one is not. Even the bullies are the ones who have been bullied the most, as we've been told for years and years. And those are the things that we get in subtle doses here. That the kids who are the bullies are that way for a reason, and you're not just protecting these innocent kids from them. You have to take them into account also, and that's what is really difficult, and that's what kind of really, I think, bumps this film up to the next level, as opposed to just one where it's like, well, here's the bad guy, and isn't this kid just such an asshole? It's like, they are, but you kind of can see why. You kind of just get enough glimpses into that, and it really hits close to home, in a lot of ways for me. So I was very into this movie, and again, nice. I'll jump in that I gave it 4.5, and like I said, it's top 5 for me for the year. Nice.
Yeah, I gave it 4.5 as well. It'll probably, I'm sure it will be in my top 10. I'm not sure if it'll be in the top 5 or bottom 5, but we'll see. I do want to say about the performances as well. When the nominations came out for the IFJA Awards, I posted it on Threads, and Kenny Rasmussen had replied and said, like, hey, thanks for loving The Plague. The boys all appreciate it. I thought that was really nice. But then I saw the movie, and like, the performances are so good that, like, in my head, this is going to sound so, I don't know, cheesy and dumb, but like in my head, I was like, I just want to reply to him, are you okay? You're all right, buddy.
Well, I do wonder about that, because that could be one of these circumstances where, things are a little too real, when you're, and I've never been really on a movie set and watched acting really happen in a real way, especially intense scenes and scenes where people are being bullied and things like that. But I've heard those stories where, if things are too real, and especially in like a horror movie environment or a thriller where someone's really being cruel, where an adult is yelling at a child, or a monster is, menacing a child, how real that is to them. And I wonder how that translated on set for those kids, because that's
me too.
Yeah, it could go, if there's method acting going on, there's going to be a lot of therapy necessary.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Because they were pretty rough.
But that's The Plague. It is opening in theaters this weekend, and check it out, please. Like, it's really worth seeking out and finding. We both rated it 4.5 stars. It'll be on our top 10s. Any parting thoughts on The Plague?
Yeah, just go see this movie. It is terrific. It is one of those kind of slow burn movies. This isn't this isn't a major blockbuster, but it is emotionally resonant, and it has a lot of universal themes. Boy or girl, it's like it doesn't. It's not along racial lines. This is strictly toxic masculinity in action, and kind of even burgeoning toxic masculinity. It's not even the full, the full thing. It's them as children training themselves to be terrible as adults. So, it's that generational thing of, the parents make their kids terrible, and we're mostly seeing the aftermath of that, but it hits home. And I think if you watch it and you give it, this is one of those ones that you could watch at home, but I think in a modern context, if you can go see it in a theater, not because of the spectacle of it, but because you're really going to be forced to pay more attention to what's going on. And I think you're going to catch a lot more.
Yeah. And see it in a theater, if only to experience the score in the theater, because it's so damn good. So that'll do it for this week's episode. Joe, thank you so much for joining me. If you could tell people where they can find you online once again, and then I'll go through my whole spiel.
And of course it is a pleasure, as it always is, to be here. Come find me on Letterboxd, Joe R. Shearer, and I don't know, find me on Facebook. I'm technically on Instagram, MidwestFilmJournal.com, and you can read some of my work. And it's I've got a lot. Google me, just Google me and try to find. Now that might be a mistake because there are a couple of other Joe Shearers, including one who likes to write, and at least he did many years ago. So I don't know if you Google me and find him, let him know I'm still getting his emails for his library rooms that he's reserving. But I get that all the time. But come find me. Facebook, Instagram, Letterboxd especially is going to be easy. And MidwestFilmJournal.com, and there's a whole lot of good writers on that site. Just fantastic stuff happening on that site. I'm really proud to be a part of that, and both in kind of my role in helping a couple of them early on. They used to write for me, and now I write for them, so to speak. And they are all great friends and great people, and really talented and insightful writers and film critics. And it's really fun to get to be a part of that kind of on a daily basis.
Absolutely. I've said it before, but I don't think you can find a better collective of film writers online, especially from Indiana.
Yeah,
so,
exactly right. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Joe. I was going to do the whole corporate, I'll give you some time back. But that's it for this week's episode of The Obsessive Viewer. As always, thank you so much for listening, and make sure to follow the show on social media, subscribe to the podcast on your preferred podcast app, and check out our other shows, Tower Junkies, a Stephen King podcast, hosted by Tiny and myself, and Anthology, the Twilight Zone and classic sci-fi podcast hosted by me. And next time on the show, I'm going to do IFJA Top 10 Films of 2025 to close out the year. That should go up tomorrow when you're listening to this. And then we're starting off the year with Welcome to Derry, and then episode 500, which I'm very excited about. So that is what's coming in 2026. Until then, thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode. And now, enjoy this short clip from a recent Patreon-exclusive episode. For the full episode and more Patreon-exclusive content, sign up at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. The price that they're paying for vanquishing the evil of Pennywise is that they will no longer be children. They are adults. They are now passing through into adulthood. That's one of the meanings behind that scene in the book. In the movie, in Andy Muschietti's movie, the kind of the scene that is that takes its place basically is the blood oath scene that's scored by that beautiful piece of score. I still love that from the score of the movie, but it's the blood oath scene, the blood pact scene. And here, I feel like them taking drugs and going into the sewer is kind of sort of the equivalent of those two scenes in this story with this Losers Club. I could be wrong. I don't know if that's the intention or not, but I think that's where I'm kind of gathering it. That's what I'm kind of getting from it, is that it feels like, oh, this is the coming of age part where they are putting away childish things and they are going into an adult situation essentially. And by showing that they are by having them do drugs basically in order to do it, that is them traversing the plane of childhood to adulthood. Thank you for listening to the Obsessive Viewer podcast. This episode was produced and edited by me, Matt Hurt. If you have feedback, thoughts on our episodes, or just want to connect, you can email me at matt@obsessiveviewer.com. For more information on this show, including a full archive of our episodes and show notes, visit obsessiveviewer.com. And if you enjoyed the show, please give us a follow on social media and subscribe to us on your podcast app of choice so you never miss an episode. Also, consider rating and reviewing the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Audible to help increase our visibility and grow our community. If you want to support the show and get early access to new episodes, as well as a steady stream of exclusive episodes, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. For information on more podcasts presented by obsessiveviewer.com, visit obsessiveviewer.com/podcasts. Our theme song is A Little Mad Sometimes by As Good As It Gets. For more of their music, check them out on Spotify and at asgoodasitgetsmusic.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Get up to 2 months of free podcasting service with Libsyn. Check out the show notes for your promo code to get started podcasting today.